to the DolphinsTalk.com podcast, the most listened to daily Miami Dolphins podcast on the internet.
Miami's got the Dolphins, the greatest of all.
Come on, Dolphins fans. Time to fins up.
We're in the air, we're on the ground, we're always in control. And when you say Miami, you're talking Super Bowl. Cause we're the Miami Dolphins, Miami Dolphins, Miami Dolphins number one. Miami Dolphins, Miami Dolphins, Miami Dolphins number one.
Good morning, Miami Dolphins fans. How are you today? And thank you for listening to the DolphinsTalk.com podcast on this Thursday, January the 23rd. I'm your host, Michael Leva, flying solo today. Got a few things I want to talk about on today's show. I'm going to talk about the latest with Anthony Weaver, Chop Robinson up for an award, and also Tua's contract and whether Miami should or should not restructure it to open cap space, as they got to clear a lot of cap space just to get to the cap, let alone to sign anyone. So we're going to talk about all that on today's show. But before I get to any of that, a quick word from our sponsor.
The DolphinsTalk.com podcast network is sponsored by Caneswear. Caneswear is the place to go for officially licensed apparel for the Miami Dolphins, Miami Heat, the Hurricanes, Florida Panthers, and all of the professional and college teams in South Florida. Looking for the latest jersey, a birthday gift, or the newest hat to hit the market of your favorite South Florida team? Check out Caneswear for their overwhelming selection of sports apparel. Located at 2655 South University Drive, Davie, Florida, Caneswear has it all. Not in South Florida? No worries. Visit Caneswear.com to shop their inventory from the comfort of your home, and they'll ship it to you. International fans, too. Caneswear.com is the spot that Miami fans shop. That's Caneswear.com. Caneswear.com.
All right. First thing is a little bit of an update on Anthony Weaver. I did a show about a lot of this earlier this week. So Weaver was supposed to meet with the Saints on Wednesday, but because of the horrible weather that is happening across the country, it was pushed back a day as there's been a lot of travel issues. So Anthony Weaver is in New Orleans today on Thursday to meet with the Saints. And really, when you look at the Saints job, Aaron Glenn was kind of near the top of their list. Obviously, with Aaron Glenn taking the Jets job, it appears the Saints job is down to three people: Mike Kafka, Anthony Weaver, and Mike McCarthy. Now, just taking a guess here, I would assume the Saints would love Mike McCarthy. Super Bowl winning coach, a lot of experience, one with the Packers, one with the Cowboys. I think he's got a 600 winning percentage his entire time in the NFL. I think he's a 500 coach in the playoffs. That's a lot of winning. So I would assume if Mike wants the job and if the Saints view him as their top candidate, that job will probably go to McCarthy. But a couple of things here. Number one, Mike McCarthy ain't going to be cheap. And number two, Mike McCarthy, after meeting with the Saints, might be like, this ain't the job for me. Because when you rank all the NFL head coaching jobs, the Saints are kind of near the bottom of the list. There's even rumblings that when the NFL expands to the UK, that the Saints might be the team that is moved out of America to London or Germany or wherever. They're one of the prime teams, on a short list that could be moved out of the country. It was a great job probably 10, 15 years ago. Nowadays, it's just not the most attractive job. But again, if you're Mike McCarthy, there's not a lot of openings right now. The Raiders haven't shown you any interest. Jacksonville up until this point hasn't shown you any interest. You're not going back to the Cowboys, obviously. So it's either sit out 2025, which sometimes is the better option, to sort of sit out here and wait and see what comes open next year, or take the Saints job if it is offered. So that's what Anthony Weaver's up against here. We'll see how this shakes out. I would guess we'll know probably maybe by the weekend or early next week. We'll see. If all these guys have home run interviews, we might not hear anything till early next week. Or if we hear something on Friday or Saturday, I would not be shocked either. But Anthony Weaver seems like he's down to the final three to possibly be a head coach in New Orleans. And for Weaver, is it the best job out there? No, for all the reasons I just said. But if you're an Anthony Weaver who's never been a head coach before, you don't say no to that job. For the same reason Mike McDaniel, he didn't say no to Miami. Mike McDaniel, no other team met with him to be a head coach. So when someone offers you a job, you just say yes, and you worry about everything else later. Same with Weaver. If one team finally offers him a head coaching job, you can't be picky. You just say yes, and you try and worry about everything else later and fix it. There's also been no rumblings in Miami about a special teams coordinator or wide receiver coach, obviously, after they fired Mr. Crossman and Mr. Wes Welker a few weeks back. I think the reason we're not going to hear anything anytime soon is because there's so many coaching staffs being put together now. New England, Chicago, obviously whatever's going on with the Saints, the Raiders, Jacksonville, and the Cowboys. A lot of the, what you would say, high quality guys, either at special teams coordinator or wide receiver coach, might want to sit pat for a bit and wait and see, because if you have a chance to get on one of those staffs, you know you're going to be safe again for 3, 4, 5 years, as it's a new incoming regime. Go to Miami, you're going to a team with a head coach and probably a general manager on the hot seat. You might just be there a year, no stability. So if you're a valued special teams coordinator who is looking for work, well, let me see what these other teams are doing here. And if I get a chance to go there right now for 3 or 4 years, I'm safe. They're going to take that over a spot in Miami where there's just no long-term stability with Mike McDaniel right now heading into 2025. Chop Robinson, he was named a finalist by the AP for Defensive Rookie of the Year. He made the final 5, so he's a finalist. This will all be announced at the NFL Honors. He's up against Jared Verse, Quinion Mitchell of the Eagles, Braden Fisk of the Rams, and Cooper DeJean of the Eagles. So he's pretty much up against 2 Rams and 2 Eagles. You got Philadelphia with Cooper DeJean and Quinion Mitchell. You got the Rams with Verse and Fisk, and then Chop Robinson all by his lonesome. I don't know if Chop will win. Jared Verse all season was just unbelievable. But I know they don't announce who comes in second. I think Chop would come in second, although we would have no idea of knowing. I just think Jared Verse will probably win. But kudos to Chop for being a finalist here for AP Defensive Rookie of the Year. One of the bright spots on that side of the ball this year, I believe. Someone who hopefully we can pair with Jaylen Phillips, although I have my doubts because Jaylen, with all the injuries, I have no idea if he'll ever be the same player again. But in a perfect world, if everything falls right, Chop on one side, Jaylen on the other here for the next few years, hopefully wrecking havoc on opposing quarterbacks. That's what we're hoping for in a perfect world. And I think what we saw from Chop as well is as the season went on, his weaknesses, well, he wasn't great at them, but setting the edge, playing the run, he improved. And that's what you want to see from week 1. And even if you head back prior to week 1, training camp, mini camps, OTAs, rookie camps, from where he was very raw in that area to how he improved as the year went on, you know, setting the edge, playing the run, you saw the improvement there. And then, of course, the quick first step, getting to the quarterback that was there all season. But sort of he became a more well-rounded player as the year went on, and that's what you want from your first-round pick. And really, the sky's the limit with him. So congratulations to Chop, even if he does not win. Just to be in that category named a finalist is really, really, really cool. Okay, before I get to my last topic, as always, a shout out to everyone listening at finheaven.com. Everyone go to finheaven.com, the largest Miami Dolphins message board on the internet. Also, a shout out to our friends at the I Am a Miami Dolphins fan Facebook page, run by the great and talented Carlos Hernandez. Also, wherever you're listening to this podcast, Apple Podcast, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Audible, Podbean, Podchaser, or one of the other hundreds of platforms we're on, hit that subscribe button. If you're watching on YouTube right now, smash that like button, subscribe to our channel, and just subscribe to wherever you're listening to this podcast. We will have shows throughout the off season, multiple shows per week, keeping you up to date on all the news and rumors. And when we get closer to free agency, we're probably going to have shows every day. When we get closer to the draft, we're going to have shows every day there to get you ready, as this Miami Dolphins offseason should be an eventful one, to say the least. And if you need more podcasts from us and want more podcasts from us, not only just about the Dolphins, but also about pro wrestling, reality TV, music, NBA, college football. Patreon.com/Dolphins Talk. It's $3 a month. You get access to a private message board with Josh, Aaron, myself, and everyone else who signs up for Dolphins Talk Extra. Yes, we have extra shows on the Dolphins, but we also have extra shows on non-Dolphins topics. We podcast about a lot of things there, just pop culture, anything happening in the world, not politics, but anything else happening in the world, in sports, music, entertainment. We have a lot of fun there, and it's a great group. And plus, we give away prizes, bobblehead dolls, mitten box, never opened, and we give away autographs of former and current Miami Dolphins players. So make sure you sign up for Dolphins Talk Extra, patreon.com/Dolphins Talk. Okay, main topic here is Tua's contract, and the Miami Dolphins head into 2025 in a little bit of a tricky situation. Last offseason, they paid Hill, they paid Tua, they paid Waddle, they restructured the deals of Armstead, they paid Ramsey. They gave out a lot of money and sort of set their future with the big 4 or 5 names, 6 names on this team, so to sort of set themselves up. Well, that was last year, and right now, as we sit January 23rd, there's only 3 NFL games left: AFC Championship, NFC Championship, Super Bowl, and then the rat race to free agency then begins, and the Miami Dolphins are about $12 million over the cap, meaning they got to cut $12 million just to get to the cap. And if you want to sign anyone, then you got to do restructures, convert roster bonuses, convert signing bonuses, and do all that stuff which you need to have a PhD in accounting for, to get under the cap enough to be able to sign players. And you look at this Miami Dolphins roster, aside from running back, which I think with Achane and Jaylen Wright, and maybe even to keep Jeff Wilson, I don't know, every other position's a need. Like, they don't have a need at running back, although if they wanted to add one, I don't think anyone would be upset. But every other position is a need. This team has no safeties. They don't have a number 2 cornerback or any real depth at cornerback either. Kendall Fuller, he will be cut because that's going to free up about $8-9 million. And you don't trust Cam Smith. He's been a bust. At linebacker, outside of Jordan Brooks, there's no linebackers who are really any good. Up front, Zach Sealer's great. Campbell, even if you resign him, he's going to be 39 and very limited in how much he can play. Chubb, he might be cut because they need cap space. Jaylen Phillips probably won't be ready for the start of the 2025 season, coming off now an ACL and an Achilles the past 2 years. That's just defense. You go on offense, they need a number 3 wide receiver. If the thing with Tyreek blows up and goes boom and he gets sent packing, they need a number 2 and a number 3 receiver. If you bump Waddle up to your number 1. Tight end depth, you really only got one that you trust. Offensive lineman, we need everywhere. You need a backup swing tackle, 2 guards, and then depth across the board. Oh, yeah, and then you got to pay a real backup quarterback. So being $12 million over the cap means Miami's got some tough decisions coming up on who's going to stay, who's going to go, and who are we going to restructure to open up cap space. And there are a lot of moves they can make to open up cap space. And I would tell Chris Grier and Mike McDaniel and everyone making the calls in Miami Gardens, go nuts. You want to cut Kendall Fuller. You want to cut Smythe. You want to restructure Alec Ingold. You want to restructure Chubb and keep him. You want to cut Chubb. I don't care. You want to restructure Zach Sealers. So that opens up some space. Go nuts. Go nuts. Go crazy. And I say this, though, with the exception of one thing. And I say except for one thing because it's based off of math and facts. So don't get in your feelings and send me angry tweets, and don't get in your feelings and send me nasty emails. I'm saying this next part. You can go nuts and restructure, cut, do whatever you want. The one thing they cannot do is do not restructure Tua's contract. I had no problem with the Miami Dolphins giving Tua's contract last August because most rational, level-headed Miami Dolphins fans thought after the 2023 season where Tua stayed healthy the entire season, he got it and he learned. He slid, he threw the ball away, he didn't take any big hits, He put on a few pounds, got a little chubby, and to absorb the hits, and he stayed healthy for the entire season, and he played outstanding. Once he got paid, aside from the weight, because he was taking off weight prior to he got the extension, but everything else, aside from the weight, once he got paid, he went back to all of his old bad habits. We saw concussions again, which was easily avoidable, but Tua got reckless. The hip injury, because once again, Tua got reckless, and Tua missed 6 games. It was the same old shit. And what it essentially did with, I think, most, again, level-headed, rational fans. You got your wackos, you got your sickos who think they're Tua's BFF. So I'm not talking about those lunatics. I'm talking most rational, level-headed fans who want to see the team win and care about the team more than one player. They sort of got slapped in the face this year with the reality that Tua can't be trusted. And since he can't be trusted, the one thing you can't do is take and extend that contract, which right now is toxic. And what I mean by toxic is we are stuck with it for a while. And in the best interest of the organization, not in the best interest of Tua fans, in the best interest of the organization, Miami has to get out of that contract ASAP. With that said, Tua is going to be here in 2025. He will be here in 2026. But do not extend this contract, kick the can down the road, push money out, which will make this a toxic contract that will be a black cloud over the entire organization for many years to come. If they restructure this deal, and I'm going to go over some numbers here soon. If they restructure this deal, Miami's going to be tied on the salary cap to Tua till 2029 in some way, shape, and form. And I'm sorry for swearing, that is fucking insane for a kid who can't stay healthy and plays his worst games in the most important games. He's always hurt. And, 2023 is the outlier. We have to look at the larger sample size. And every year, except for 2023, he's hurt. Going back to college. So now look, I have the numbers, and I know on a podcast form, listening to all these numbers, it's like a flashback to going into math class when you were in school. But I will try to explain this in the most simplest way possible, because Barry Jackson of the Miami Herald spoke to a couple salary cap experts, and they crunched the numbers and tried to explain this. And I will try to explain it in even simpler terms to why Miami cannot touch this deal. And if they do, as fans, we're going to be the ones who are going to suffer. So, per the Miami Herald and Barry Jackson, the Miami Dolphins can do a max restructure, meaning they can really, the contract they gave them last August, restructure it to as far as you can go to open up the most salary cap space you can this upcoming offseason. A max restructure of Tua's contract, which has a $25 million base salary for 2025, would drop to $1.17 million. That would create $19 million in cap space and lower his cap number from $39 million to $20. So if they do a max restructure, the Dolphins, who are $12 million over the cap, would be $7 million under before they touched anyone else or did anything else. Which you go, oh, that's great. Why would you do that? Here's why you don't do that. Because once you do that, you're pretty much taking the money you're saving this year and kicking it out to further years. Meaning that his cap hit for Tua from 2026 through 2029 then jumps to $4.7 million each year. So if he's on the books, just a round number, not saying it's the exact number, but I have it, so I'll go over it. In 2026, if he's on the books for $50 million, he's on the books for 54. 2027, he's on the books for 55. Then he goes up to 59, so on and so forth. So essentially, you're just making his cap number larger in upcoming years, which means you're never going to get out of this cycle of hell. And once again, for a guy who can't stay healthy and you can't really trust him in big games, you don't want to be tied to him even longer. Maybe, it's not even maybe, I think if the Miami Dolphins had a mulligan, they wouldn't have given him the extension in August, but they did. And that's where we are. That's the reality. So it's about, managing that contract now and making it as least painful as possible. So to go on, according to Jason Fitzgerald of Over the Cap, one of the leading sources when it comes to salary cap information, and this was in the Miami Herald article, the first real option for the Miami Dolphins to release Tua would be in 2027. They would still have about $64 million for him on the cap, but only $20 million would be guaranteed. And when you hear these numbers, the guaranteed money is always the most important. So in the spring of 2027, 2 years from now, the Miami Dolphins would have two options. They can cut him and take a $63.8 million dead money cap hit, which means if your cap, once again, making up numbers, $200 million. If you're the Dolphins, you only got $137 million to play with. $63 million of it you can't use because you're paying for a guy who's not on the team, dead money. Or you can cut him post June 1st, which means out of that $63 million, you only take a $36.5 million cap hit in 2027 and the rest of it in 2028. And that realistically, if you don't touch his contract, is when you're the Dolphins, you give him 2 more years, see if he can somehow stay healthy, win big games. And if he does, great, then you restructure him then. If not, at that point, you got to move on at some point because he would have been here 7 years at that point. You cut him and split the cap hit over 2 years, and the $36 million really isn't too bad, and you just move on to play another day. That's what they should do. Do not restructure him to get $19 million of cap room this year. They got 10 draft picks this year. There's a lot of other guys they can cut and restructure to open up cap space. Chubb, Armstead, Ramsey, Hill. There's money you can move around, get rid of to open up cap space. I would not touch Tua. And here, if you're a fan of the Dolphins and you want to see this team win in the next few years, you want to see a team win playoff games, win the AFC East, actually be relevant, this is what should scare fans of the Dolphins. Because the cap hits rise significantly. If the Dolphins do the max restructure in the next 6 weeks, that gives them the extra $19 million. In 2026, Tua's cap number goes from 56.4 to 61.2. So if they do this to open up the $19 million right now to have this year or this offseason to go sign some guys in March, if he has another bad year or gets hurt again and misses 4 or 5 games, next year his cap number is now $61 million. You've just made your situation worse with a guy who's just proven again he can't stay healthy, can't win big games. Okay, and you can't do these types of restructures every year because you're going to get to the end of this deal where he's going to cut like $100 million on the cap and he's not going to be on the team. Like at some point, you got to pay the piper here. So, and again, that would raise his 2027 cap hit to $57 million. In 2028, it would be like 65 or 69 million. I mean, it gets to insane numbers, and because you're kicking the can down the road, you're just making it harder on yourself. And I know I'm not the best guy when it comes to the cap. Again, this is from the Miami Herald and the cap experts. But the moral of the story here is if you're the Dolphins and you restructure Tua's deal, he's going to be on your cap through 2029. And even if he's on the team or not, and if he's not on the team after, say, 2027, good luck trying to win. Good luck when you move on from Grier, when you move on from Mike McDaniel, trying to find another quality GM or a quality head coach who wants to come here, because they're going to look at the books and say, you handcuffed me with these contracts and you've handcuffed me with a salary cap and I'm in a terrible spot. I'm going to take another job where I don't have all these issues. Now I know there's some of you out there saying, but the salary cap goes up every year. Don't worry about it. Yeah, it goes up every year for every team equally. So it means Miami's situation never really improves compared to the other teams in the league because it goes up for everyone. It doesn't just go up for Miami. Also, I know some of you are saying, but Grier and Mike McDaniel don't care. If they're on the hot seat and if they get fired, well, that's the next guy's problem. Yeah, that's the scary part as a fan. Maybe for them, they don't care. As a fan, you should. Because do you trust Chris Grier? Do you trust Mike McDaniel? Have many of the moves they've made recently, not so much Grier because it's even longer than recently, like panned out and led to like wins? Big wins, playoff wins, AFC East titles? No. But here's the saving grace, fans of the Dolphins. I do have a silver lining. This isn't all doom and gloom. I have a silver lining. And our silver lining isn't perfect, but here's a silver lining. Remember that report a few weeks back about Chris Grier was contemplating retirement to move into a senior advisor role? It didn't happen, but the report wasn't wrong. He was considering it. If Chris Grier plans on being a part of the Miami Dolphins for the next, 10 years as a senior advisor, whenever this happens, maybe this is his last year as a GM, or maybe next, or maybe in 2 years it's his last year as a GM. If he has plans, you know what? I'm not going to be the GM. I'm going to move up into this cushy senior advisor role, get a check from Mr. Ross, and just give my advice. I don't have any power. If he wants that job, the only way he gets that job is to not screw up this Miami Dolphins roster and salary cap to the point it can't be fixed. Okay? So if I'm Grier, if you do this max restructure, open up all this money, and the Dolphins stink next year, he gets hurt again too, he misses 5, 6, 7 games, all that stuff, Ross is going to go, you're all fired. Grier, I don't even want to see you no more. You're not going to be the senior advisor. Grier, in his mind, might be saying, well, let me hedge my bet. I'm not going to touch his deal. I'm going to restructure some other deals. We'll see how 2025 plays out. And if I got to move into and if it doesn't go well, I'll step into the senior advisor role and we'll let the next guy come in and clean up some of the mess. But I can't make the mess so bad that nobody wants the job. That's the point. And I think Grier knows if he makes this mess so bad, there's no senior advisor role for him. He's just going to be thrown out with everyone else. If Grier tries to, win without screwing up the salary cap till 2029 possibly, then yeah, he can move into a senior advisor role and then have the next guy come in and be like, okay, got a little bit of a mess, but it's not too bad. It's no worse than any other team's mess, and he can just sort of manage it. So Grier is smart. Grier is a smart guy, and nobody looks out for Chris Grier like Chris Grier. That's the saving grace. But I just think if you're the Dolphins, you got to be out of your ever-loving mind if you touch Tua's contract. Look, everyone likes Tua the person. He's a good kid. But we got to deal with facts. He doesn't stay healthy. Fact. He doesn't play great in big games against teams that are great. He's had a couple big games at the Bills twice now. He's played well and they lost. I get it. But versus Kansas City, he was horrible in each game. Versus Philadelphia, versus the Packers, Houston. We can go on and on and on and list all the big games he's lost where he's played horrible. Okay? That's just a fact. Okay? And he can't be trusted. So I think, look, if he had a 2024 season like 2023, look, 2023 was healthy, he played great. 2024 was healthy, he played great. And maybe we didn't win like we thought, but you know what? He's close, we're close. Do the restructure because you have no worries about him being here through 2027, 2028, and possibly longer. But right now you have a lot of worry about that. You have a lot of worry that one more big injury, this kid might have to retire, and it might not be his choice. He just might not be medically clear. The hip injury, we don't talk about it anymore because there's no more games, but we have no idea how severe or not severe it is. Everyone said Tua wanted to play through it. Well, if they're telling him no, I mean, good God, how bad was it? How bad was it? So who knows? They gave out a contract last August that they probably regret. And that's okay because the information they had in front of them in August, I think a lot of people would have gave out that same contract. So I'm not even going to fault them for that, okay? I know there's a lot of controversy, make them play out the fifth, but I understand why they did it, and I'm not going to rip them for why they did it, but don't double down on stupid right now. Keep this contract in place. Hold on to this kid for 24 more months, 2 more seasons. If it gets really bad in 2025, then you know what? You got the draft. Find someone else to be your number one. Tua can take a back seat for a year, and then you move on. If he plays great this year, great. Then maybe next year you consider restructuring. If he can prove again to stay healthy, maybe he starts to beat teams that are good. Maybe then we restructure him next year. But do not pull the trigger on that now. Not coming off the year he just had with the injuries and the lack of success. I think you got to wait. I think it's the only way to do it. I hope they do it. I'm not a big fan of Chris Grier, but I know Chris Grier is looking out for Chris Grier. And I think once, if he's got a clear head and a clear mind, he will see what I just laid out as the only way to move forward. We'll see, though. This is the Miami Dolphins, and it's always something. All right, that's all for today's show. Thanks for listening. This Friday, if you're not a part of Dolphins Talk Extra, we're having a happy hour show. If you don't know what a happy hour show is, it's where you, the listeners, can jump on a podcast with myself, Josh, and Aaron. It's going to be Friday evening, not too late. I think like 8 o'clock on the East Coast, I believe, or something. So sign up for patreon.com. Go to patreon.com/DolphinsTalk. $3. Sign up. You get access to the contest to win cool prizes. You get access to the message board. You get access to all the bonus podcasts, Miami Dolphins, non-Miami Dolphins. And, of course, you get access to jump on our happy hour show, which will go as long as it needs to go to make sure everyone who wants to get on gets on. Come on. You can talk to us about Dolphins. You want to vent to us. You want to just trauma dump. If you want to talk about your wife and kids, you want to talk about something in the NBA, you can talk about any topic you want. And it's because it's on patreon.com/DolphinsTalk. Dolphins Talk Extra. It's a happy hour show. We got one this Friday. We're going to do more of these. We're going to be adding some new unique content here to our Dolphins Talk Extra platform. So if you want to be a part of that, if you want to jump on a podcast and say, Aaron and Mike, you two are idiots. Josh, I love you. Or you want to go, Josh and Aaron, you two are idiots. Mike, you're the only smart one here. Go for it. You can tell us anything you want. You know why? Because you're a Dolphins Talk Extra subscriber. So everyone go to patreon.com/Dolphins Talk. It's a lot of fun. We'll have some fun with that. Also, wherever you follow us on social media, make sure you are following us on social media, I should say, at Dolphins Talk on pretty much every platform, and go to the website, DolphinsTalk.com. Everyone have a great rest of your Thursday. We'll talk to you again after a while. And folks, don't forget, we must put an end to highway profanity.